Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Build a Brand Wednesday here on the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. It is midweek, people. Yes, I know a lot of y'all was off Monday, but regardless, it's still midweek. It's still Build a Brand Wednesday. I know you call it Hump Day Wednesday, but I need for you to rebrand that. Yes, brand, you get it? Brand? Build a Brand Wednesday. Man, this week has been powerful. It has been powerful. Monday, we talked about protect your access points. Tuesday, on yesterday, we talked about discernment is a security system. But today, people, we shift deeper into the conversation. Today, we are talking about protecting your biggest asset. Y-O-U. Yes, you heard it, family. You are your biggest asset. And before we go any further, we need to understand what an asset actually is, because many people think assets are houses, cars, money, jewelry, businesses, status, followers, visibility. But an asset is something valuable that produces value. An asset is something that carries value, creates value, multiply value, and sustains value. And if we are honest, many people spend more time protecting their phones, their businesses, their bank account, their social media than they do protecting their peace, their emotional health, their discipline, their mind, their spiritual conditions, and their leadership capacity. And as I always say, people, that's dangerous, because you are the brand. You are the infrastructure. You are the operating system. You are the environment carrying the vision. Let's look at Proverbs 4, verse 23. It said, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Everything flows from the condition of the internal system. See, today we are talking about self-worth, burnout, stewardship, emotional health, discipline, protecting capacity, protecting peace, your identity, your purpose, and leadership infrastructure. Because if the infrastructure collapses, eventually the brand follows. And family, remember this. God created mankind after the work was already finished. He created Adam into a prepared environment. The garden was already established. Provision was already established. Structure was already established. Then God created man to steward, to manage, to protect, and to cultivate what he already built. See, that means God created us with value, with responsibility and purpose already attached to us. We were created to steward greatness. And according to the scripture, not to me, but according to the scripture, we are his temple. And that means your mind matters, your health matters, your peace matters, and discipline matters. Because God never designed people to destroy themselves carrying purpose. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Join us on this heavenly journey, one song at a time, Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise on this Build a Brand Wednesday. And this show to me is very, very important. I wrote an article over 10 years ago, protecting your biggest asset while you, and that's a book that I was working on over 12 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I have to bring this in. I have to talk about this. See, a lot of people started talking about things when AI came about because they never had subject matter. But if you follow me, you go back and look at Demetrius L. Brown. I've been talking about purpose and people protecting their asset for a long time. But let's talk about this. You are your biggest asset. See, most people think their greatest asset is external, but your greatest asset is you. Because without you, the vision does not move. Without you, the business does not operate. Without you, the family loses leadership. And without you, the assignment loses execution. You are the system carrying the mission. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is treating themselves like they are replaceable while expecting their purpose to remain strong. See, that does not work long term. If you are the asset, you must protect the asset. See, many people understand how to protect money, property, investments, the technology, but neglect protecting the person generating the value. That creates imbalance, people, because once the external system weakens, eventually external systems begin to suffer too. You are the brand, people. YOU. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
You're riding the waves of faith and grace on Wave Radio.
Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. Make sure you follow Wave Radio, all right? But let's talk about self-worth shapes performance. See, people perform according to what they believe they are worth internally. That's powerful because many people claim they want success. They want growth. They want peace. They want elevation while externally carrying defeat, insecurity, low self-worth, emotional instability, and eventually external belief systems create external limitations. I'm going to repeat that. Internal belief systems create external limitations. See, some people sabotage opportunities because their internal identity cannot sustain external growth yet. That's why healing matters, people. That's why healing matters, people. I had to sing it to you. But people, healing matters. That's why discipline matters. That's why identity matters. A person who secretly believes they are unworthy will eventually shrink. They will procrastinate. They will overthink, self-sabotage, and settle beneath their potential, even when opportunities appear externally, because internal beliefs eventually shape external behavior. Professional output rarely exceeds self-worth long term. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and today is Build a Brand Wednesday, and we are talking about protecting your biggest asset, YOU. Yes, you are your biggest asset. But let's talk about burnout is system failure. See, burnout is not a badge of honor. Burnout is a warning sign. Many people glorify exhaustion, overworking, emotional depletion, constant stress, like it proves commitment. But burnout often reveals unprotected leadership capacity. You cannot endlessly pour or build or lead or produce or carry pressure without maintaining the system carrying their assignment. And many people are scaling visibility while neglecting the person behind the vision. That eventually becomes expensive. See, some people are trying to operate at high levels while their nervous system is constantly stuck in survival mode. That affects everything. That affects your decision making. That affects your emotional regulation. That affects your focus. That affects your patience, and that affects your leadership stability. Burnout is not strength, people. It is often accumulated neglect. Burnout is often a failure of system maintenance. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and this is Build a Brand Wednesday, and we are talking about protecting your biggest asset, YOU. Let me say this. A strong image cannot hide weak infrastructure forever. See, we can paint the picture, but what's behind it, the canvas, if the canvas is cheap, the paint gonna go through. If the canvas is raggedy, is not good for whatever you're putting on there, people gonna notice. Because guess what? The picture is going to begin to become runny. The paint is going to become runny. It's gonna fade out, it's gonna wear out. See, a strong image cannot hide weak infrastructure forever, people. This generation is heavily focused on image. Look at Instagram, image videos. Look at IG, look at TikTok. See, this generation is heavily focused on image, presentation, visibility, appearance. But eventually, weak infrastructure becomes visible publicly. A strong image cannot permanently hide emotional exhaustion, lack of discipline, internal instability, poor stewardship, unresolved emotional damage. Look at all these influencers who was once out there during the pandemic, a little bit after the pandemic. A lot of them, they're in jail because they were doing fraud. They are mentally exhausted. They are broke. A lot of them, it was just an image, and people bought into the image, and from people buying into the image, that's how a lot of them got a lot of money. But guess what? As people started to get smart and be like, hold on, they can't do what they say they can do. They're not doing what they say they were going to do. And guess what? People begin to talk. People begin to say, okay, hold on. We're not settling for this no more. So a strong image cannot hide weak infrastructure forever, people. See, a strong image cannot permanently hide emotional exhaustion. It cannot hide the lack of discipline. It cannot hide internal instability or poor stewardship or unresolved emotional damage. See, eventually internal collapse leaks externally. That's why protecting your internal world matters. Because eventually your internal conditions become visible through behavior, consistency, leadership, relationships, and decision making. See, a polished exterior may impress people temporarily, but infrastructure determines longevity. And many people are trying to build public success on private instability that eventually collapse under pressure. See, many people are building externally while collapsing internally. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and this is Build a Brand Wednesday. The mind behind the mission must be protected. Your mind matters, people. Your peace matters. Your emotional condition matters. Because the mind behind the mission determines the health of the mission itself. Some people are trying to build businesses, ministries, careers, brands, carrying families, while mentally exhausted constantly. That's dangerous, because exhausted minds eventually make emotional decisions, and emotional instability weakens operational consistency. That's why protecting your mental health is not weakness, it's stewardship. See, the enemy of many great visions is not lack of talent. It is unmanaged mental exhaustion. A tired mind often struggles to think clearly, discern wisely, lead consistently, regulate emotions, and execute strategically. The mind behind the mission must be protected. And that's you. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio, and we are talking about protecting your biggest asset, YOU. Protecting yourself is stewardship, people. Some people feel guilty protecting themselves. They think boundaries are selfish. Rest is weakness. Saying no is wrong. Protecting peace is avoidance. But stewardship requires protection. You protect your valuable property. You protect your investments. You protect your information. So why would you neglect protecting yourself? Protecting yourself is not selfish. It is wisdom. It is great stewardship of God's temple, you. And mature people stop treating peace, rest, and their discipline and their emotional regulations and spiritual health like optional luxuries. They are not optional luxury, people. And mature people stop treating their peace like that, and they rest like that, and their discipline, and their emotional regulation, and their spiritual health. See, God gave mankind responsibility in the garden before sin entered the world. That means stewardship was already part of God's design. See, protecting your peace, your mind, your health, and your discipline is part of honoring what God entrusted you to do. Protecting yourself is stewardship. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Bringing the sounds of heaven 24/7, Wave Radio.
Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Praise on this Wednesday, this beautiful Build a Brand Wednesday. I know you be like, man, it's Hump Day Wednesday, man. No, it's Build a Brand Wednesday, man. I need you to change the wording. You know, we got to change the wording, things that we say, you know, like Monday. Oh, here go Monday. Here go another week. Oh, here go Hump Day Wednesday. Yeah, no, change it. You got to build yourself up through your vocabulary, through the way you speak to yourself. Okay? But let's talk about emotional debt eventually creates collapse. See, just like financial debt creates pressure, emotional debt does too. Unresolved stress, unprocessed emotions, constant pressure, no recovery, no boundaries, no emotional regulation. That debt builds internally, and eventually the nervous system starts breaking down under pressure. See, many people are functioning publicly while collapsing privately. That's why emotional maintenance matters. Because ignored emotional debt eventually creates burnout, instability, poor decisions, emotional reactivity, and exhaustion. A lot of people keep pushing themselves emotionally without ever stopping to recover properly. And eventually, unresolved pressure begins leaking into your relationships, your leadership, your communication, your discipline, your consistency. See, emotional debt eventually demands payment. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and I just want to say this. God never called you to destroy yourself for purpose. I'm going to say that again. God never called you to destroy yourself for purpose. See, some people believe purpose means constant exhaustion, constant sacrifice, constant depletion. But God never called people to destroy themselves carrying the assignment. Let's look at 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19-20. And you know, I'm just going to paraphrase it. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost? That means your body matters. That means your mind matters. That means your health matters. You cannot continue treating the vessel carelessly while expecting long-term stability. See, God gave purpose, but he also commands stewardship. Your body is not just flesh. It's a vessel carrying assignment. It's carrying influence. It's carrying leadership. It's carrying purpose. And it's carrying impact. When people neglect the vessel long enough, eventually the assignment feels heavier than it was ever designed to feel. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and we are talking about protecting your biggest asset, YOU. The vessel carrying the assignment must be protected. You are the vessel. You are the temple. See, discipline protects capacity, people. See, a lot of people depend on motivation emotionally, but discipline protects stability. Discipline protects peace, routines, focus, consistency, emotional regulation, because disciplined people create systems that reduce chaos, and chaos drains energy. That's why mature leaders stop depending on emotional motivation daily. They build rhythms, structure, recovery systems, and healthy routines. And the stronger the structure becomes, the less emotional scrambling controls the day. Yes, I'm gonna say that again, because a lot of y'all are emotional scrambling. But let me repeat that. The stronger the structure becomes, the less emotional scrambling controls the day. Discipline creates predictability. Predictability produces unnecessary stress. Reduced stress protects capacity. Discipline protects the asset to people. The asset, which is YOU. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise on this Build a Brand Wednesday. Let's talk about purpose creates stability. See, purpose matters deeply because purpose anchors people emotionally during difficult seasons. Without purpose, success still feels empty. That's why people achieve goals, gain visibility, make money, build platforms, and still feel disconnected internally. Because success without purpose still creates emptiness. Let's look at Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord. Purpose stabilize identity, and identity stabilize execution. When people know who they are, why they exist, why they are called to do, they become more stable emotionally during pressure. Purpose gives pain context. Purpose gives sacrifice meaning. Purpose gives discipline direction. A successful person is someone operating in their God-given purpose while adding value to others. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Hey, you're tuned in to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. Stop treating rest like weakness. Rest is not a weakness. Rest is a system maintenance. Even God established rhythms of rest because constant output without recovery eventually damages your focus, your health, your emotional stability, your leadership clarity. See, some people are proud to be exhausted. That's not wisdom. You cannot scale a vision on a nervous system permanently stuck in survival mode. See, the Sabbath principle teaches us you are not a machine. You are a human being with emotional, spiritual, and physical and mental limits. And ignoring those limits eventually damage the infrastructure carrying the assignment. Rest, people. Rest, people. Rest, people. Rest protects operational strength. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. Hey, have you ever drunk some coffee before you got on air? But I guess y'all are not on the radio, but you drink coffee before you get ready to talk. Your mouth just gets so watery, but the coffee be so good, you know? But I love some coffee. How many of y'all love coffee? I think I might need to slow down on coffee, but it's something about that coffee, man, that gets me through the day. But let's talk about emotional regulation is leadership. Leadership is not only strategy. Leadership is emotional regulation. And if a person cannot manage emotions, if they cannot manage their reactions, if they can't manage themselves under pressure, if they can't manage internal chaos, they eventually become unstable under pressure. See, strong leaders learn how to pause, process, and respond wisely. They know how to regulate their emotions, remain grounded during pressure. And people, that's not easy. That's something you have to practice. That's something you have to focus on doing. It had to become a habit. That's that coffee kicking in, making my mouth watering. But this is something you have to practice, because we are always quick to respond. We say we listening, but we sitting in queue ready to say what we want to say before we even listen to what the other person had to say. But that's not good leadership. But strong leaders learn how to pause. Strong leaders learn how to process. And strong leaders learn how to respond wisely. And strong leaders regulate their emotions. Because emotional activity damages relationships, decision-making, consistency, culture. People feel the emotional conditions of the leadership environment. That means unresolved emotional instability eventually affects everyone connected to the system. Emotional stability is leadership infrastructure. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. Let's talk about stop building while ignoring yourself. See, many people are trying to build businesses, build ministries, build influence, build success, building a family, while ignoring themselves completely. You're ignoring your health. You are ignoring your emotional need. You're ignoring rest. You're ignoring your healing. You are ignoring your peace. You are ignoring your discipline, your spiritual conditions. That's dangerous, because eventually the person behind the brand becomes exhausted. And once the internal system weakens, everything attached to it eventually feels the pressure. See, a lot of people are trying to pour from empty systems while pretending they are still functioning normally. But eventually, exhaustion becomes visible through your inconsistency, through your frustration, through your emotional instability, through your lack of focus, and through your poor stewardship. You cannot build a healthy life from an unhealthy internal system. And we have all been there, and some of us are still there. Some of us are finding our way through this. But we have to be honest, people. We cannot ignore ourselves, because if we ignore ourselves, we're not good for the next person. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and we are talking about protecting your biggest asset, YOU. And if you miss any part of this show, you can go back to my YouTube channel, The Business Point Guard, and listen to the show entirely. And if you miss any other show, please go back and listen to the show and share. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to my YouTube channel and share it with someone, okay? But let's talk about guard the internal environment. Proverbs 4 verse 23, keep thy heart with all diligence, See, the heart is the command center. Everything flow from belief systems, emotional conditions, internal health, spiritual alignment. That's why guarding the heart matters, because corrupt internal environments eventually creates corrupted outcome externally. Yeah. See how that rhythm right there? I had rhythm with that sentence. But let me repeat it again. Corrupted internal environments eventually creates corrupted outcomes externally. See, protect your peace, people. Protect your thoughts. Protect your discipline. Protect your spiritual health. Protect your emotional environment like valuable infrastructure. What repeatedly enter your mind, your emotions, conversations, environment eventually shapes your internal condition. And internal conditions eventually shape external outcomes. Internal environments create external realities. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you just tuned in and you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. We talk about doing audits a lot on this show, and hopefully you are doing the audits. See, on this Build a Brand Wednesday, it's about conducting an internal audit. Ask yourself, am I emotionally exhausted? Am I operating from peace or survival? Am I protecting my health? Am I protecting my mind? Am I protecting my discipline? Am I ignoring warning signs internally? Am I operating in purpose? Am I protecting the person carrying the assignment? These are audit questions that you should ask yourself. And I'm gonna take some more time. I'm gonna repeat these questions. Ask yourself this. Am I emotionally exhausted? And I'm gonna slow this down because this is very important. Am I operating from peace or survival? Am I protecting my health? Am I protecting my mind? Am I protecting my discipline? Am I ignoring warning signs internally? Am I operating in purpose? And then ask yourself, am I protecting the person carrying the assignment? Because if you are the asset, you must maintain the asset. Many people regularly audit their finances, their business reports, social media analysis, performance metrics, while never auditing their emotional health, their spiritual condition, their peace, their mental stability, and their leadership capacity. That must change today, people, this moment right now. You are responsible for protecting the brand. YOU. You are your biggest asset. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise on this Build a Brand Wednesday. My time is up. It's been great. It's been lovely. And I thank you, like always, for joining me here on the Afternoon Praise. I don't care if you're listening to the show live, you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you're on my YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. And again, please share this. Share this information. If you find this information valuable, if you find my shows valuable, please share this with someone. But before I leave you, I want to leave you with this. Let's look at 3 John 1 verse 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. God cares about your health. God cares about your peace. God cares about your mind. And God cares about your soul. He cares about your stability. And most of all, he cares about your stewardship. See, this week is about protection. It's about stewardship. It's about discernment. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about operational wisdom and self-leadership. Because if it's not protected, I'm sorry, you don't own it. You got to protect your peace. You got to protect your mind. You got to protect your discipline. You got to protect your health. Protect your emotional conditions. Protect the person carrying the vision, you. And remember, God created you with value already attached to your existence. You were created with purpose. You were created with assignment. You were created with responsibility. You were created with the ability to create value. And you were created with the ability to impact lives. Protect what God entrusted to you. Protect the brand. Protect the asset. YOU. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I am out of here. I will catch you tomorrow on Thrive Thursday. I'm out of here. Peace.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.